Hello everyone. In the following two units 3 and 4, we will be looking at measurements. Now let's just focus on Unit 3. Unit 3 we will be looking at specifically perimeter and area of two-dimensional shapes. Okay, for that I think we should review. I think we all have seen this before, and I would suggest for everyone to create on a blank sheet of paper, just dedicate the entire sheet to let's review the formulas of different geometric figures. So let's begin with an easy shape here, and just a rough sketch. What shape is this? Of course, we all know that it is a rectangle, which, by the way, before I go ahead, you are welcome to always pause the video and try to figure out what the formulas are, or what the examples are, or what the solutions will be, okay? Alright, so this is a rectangle. We've put 2 tick marks here and then 1 tick mark there, indicating that these two sides have the same length and these two sides have the same length. Okay, so we're going to call this side with the letter W, just to give it a variable name, and we're going to call this L, right? So L for length, W for width, right? So what is the formula for the perimeter of a rectangle? You may want to pause it, which, by the way, let's ask ourselves, what is the definition of perimeter? What's the definition of area? Well, the definition of perimeter is, you may want to pause it, but the definition of perimeter is the distance around a two-dimensional shape. So this is a two-dimensional shape, so we will be measuring the distance around the rectangle. So for that we need to add this side length plus this side length plus that, so that we would end up with W plus L plus L. Now this can be rewritten as what? Collecting like terms. So what we have is 1W plus 1W, so that becomes 2W plus L plus L, that gives us 2L. Now remember the definition for like terms. Like terms are terms that have the same variable and same exponent. Now 2W plus 2L, that will be the definition of our perimeter. We can write it this way as well, or we can also write it this way by factoring out what's common among these two terms, which is the 2. So 2 open bracket L plus W. So 2 times this will give us this, will give us that. Same thing. All these three formulas are exactly the same thing. This is just a simplified version. Right? And area. What's the area of a rectangle? Well, before we get to that, I'm sure you remember what it is. What's the definition of the area? Well, the area is the space occupied by a two-dimensional shape. Sometimes they also define area as the space occupied by a flat shape. Same thing. Wait, what's the area of a rectangle? Well, length times width. Length times width. So for example, if we needed to paint this triangle, let's say this was much bigger, let's assume that this was a wall. If we needed to paint this, we would need to find the area, right, to figure out how much paint we need. If we needed to just paint the borders of this rectangle, then we are looking for the perimeter. Okay, the next shape. The next shape is a parallelogram. So it can be drawn this way. So just a rough shape. It's also four-sided. Remember, the tick marks indicate that they have the same shape. Now I'm going to put these different tick marks. They look like arrows, and the reason is that it is indicating that these two sides are parallel to each other. Not only that they have the same length, but they are parallel to each other. And this side length and this side length are parallel to each other. So now we're going to draw this line here, which I should have dotted it, but this is the height. Alright, so let's call this side B, and let's call this side C. And of course the perimeter would be what? B plus C plus B plus C, or we can say 2 times B plus 2 times C, which is in turn, it's equal to 2 open bracket B plus C. It's the same thing. You can use either or, you will get the same answer. Now, what is the area of the parallelogram? Well, it's essentially base times the height. So if you multiply this length plus that length, you will get the area of this parallelogram. Let's write down parallelogram here so we all know. Parallelogram. Okay, our next shape would be the triangle. Right, just a rough sketch on your notes. Make sure you do this. Right, we're gonna call this is gonna be our height. This is gonna be side length A, side length B, side length C. And what's the perimeter here? Well, the perimeter would be, you add all three sides. Now, we don't know whether these sides are the same or not, so for the triangle, we just have to do this. Add all three sides. And the area of the triangle, you may recall, is what? Base times height divided by 2. I didn't write the multiplication sign there, but we all know sometimes they put a dot, right? Same thing. Base times height divided by 2. Our next shape is the trapezoid. Trapezoid. And just a rough sketch here. Okay, well, this was supposed to be a little more even. There. Let's call this A, B, C, and D. Okay, and then we also have a height as well. So from here to there, there's the height. Okay, so what is the perimeter of a trapezoid? The perimeter is always easy to figure out. Just add all sides. In this case, A plus B plus C plus D. But the area, it's a little more involved. So the formula for the area of a trapezoid is the following. It's this: 1/2 times A plus B in brackets multiplied by the height. This can be rewritten as A plus B in brackets times the height divided by 2. Either formula works. You can use either formula or whatever you're comfortable with. And similar here too, I forgot to mention it for the triangle. You could also do 1/2 times base times the height. It's the same thing. These two are going to give you the same answer. You can use either one, whichever one you're comfortable with. Now let's move on to our last shape, which is the circle. Okay, now this is going to be a little bit tough, so I'm going to try to make the best circle that I can. There, that's my best attempt at doing the circle. I'm going to retrace it again. Okay, so the center of the circle, the origin, and then we have a line that goes in the middle of that, and this line is called, what is this line called, and what is this line called? Well, this short one starts for radius, which is half of the diameter, and this entire line is called the diameter, right? So what is the perimeter of the circle? Actually, we don't say perimeter for the circle, we actually say circumference. So let's write it down here. That is essentially the perimeter of the circle. You can say it that way, but it's more accurate to simply say the circumference. Circumference. And the formula here is equal to the circumference. C is equal to 2 pi r, which is essentially the radius times 2 times pi. Or you could also write it as, if you multiply the radius times 2, that gives you the diameter. So you have pi times the diameter, right? And of course, just remember, note pi is equal to 3.14, and I think it's 1/5 something like that afterwards. Let me just double check. Yeah, 1, 5, right? So 3, 4, 1, 5. The more decimals you use, the more accurate it's going to be, right? Etc., etc., etc. Okay, and the area of a circle, the area of the circle is pi r squared. So make sure you have this sheet on your notes, and you can refer to this when we start looking at the other examples.